The ultimate Pokemon game. The future Pokemon should have had. The content Pokemon should have had being a full-price AAA JRPG game. Hello everyone, we're here again. Let's talk about some more examples, right? Because I want to use some animation. I want to give people, the real issues, right, of Pokemon. And not really is Pokemon, but you generally what you expect, right, for a full-cost game in this genre. I think that a lot of people are still, it's dexit. No. The issue, as I said in my last video, is that there's nothing there except the core gameplay. And Pokemon has still a fun core gameplay, right? That's the thing. The mechanics of the basic Pokemon game is still really enjoyable, but it's just that. I think Suikoden here, again, one of the best games ever. It's a good example of a game that 6 per team, like Pokemon, 108 characters, similar to Pokemon Beginner, right? When it was released. But also has 2 more battle modes, which are very different, like completely different battle modes. Strategy fight, duel fight, 3 completely different game battle modes. It has the whole building your own city, cooking game, fishing game, gambling game, trading game. It has so much more stuff than just the core gameplay. That's AAA JRPG game you expect, right? This will be a video about here. And I want to talk about that stuff, right? We go in detail about what you expect, in my opinion, from like a Final Fantasy or similar games, right? From other companies, mainly from Square Enix, of them, primarily, but still though, from the other JRPG games. And how Pokemon is like the only big AAA franchise who has like nothing except its core gameplay, which is still great though, right? So that's the problem with Pokemon, is a completely bare bone world, right? And then increasing the price and still doing that is a very disappointing. Whatever. But we talk about itself. And I want to say this stuff though. So, difference between a good and a great designer is that a good designer has 1,000 good ideas, right? 1,000 good ideas. A great designer has 1,000 ideas, but then say these 5 are the best one. I only give the 5 best one on the meeting, right? Because it takes a lot less time going over 1,000. And a fantastic designer takes those 5 ideas and says, wait a minute, these 2 are only feasible ideas. The other 3 are too expensive, too much manpower, too much time, and so on. I want to have them, but they're too expensive at the current time and so on. So he only brings 2 ideas to the meeting board, and then he'll actually be against all ideas. Like, no, this. So what I'm trying to do here, arguably, I'm a fantastic designer. So everything I present now, example-wise, like Game Plus, New Game Plus, and Boss and so on, right? Minigames, all these are feasible. Stuff that should have done with their number of employees and the time frame and so on. So I've tried that. So this won't be every possible idea ever. This would be ideas that should have done, right? Literally should have done. And I argue that from my standpoint, then knowing how to code and so on, whatever, right? So that I think is important here. So I already done kind of like the research, right? To that this we could have done. But the story will be a little bit though. And last, then to piss people off, here's my paper of my money and so on. So the only really complaint I had on my last video is people say he's probably lying about X, Y, and Z, right? And all of those is attacking me as a personal level, right? Completely not talking about the points I'm making, right? I'm just saying facts, and then I'm doing conclusions from my facts, and should attack my conclusion, not my, my backstory, right? It doesn't make any sense. So to make people more angry, my current title is art/UX design director even now. Yeah, cool. And I'm also a senior level 2 manager, so basically I have a higher salary, like a senior level. Whatever. Be pissed off, write any comments, whatever, right? I'm just doing debate here, right? Because if you are attacking me as a person, that just proves that you don't have anything to stand on, right, for the argument. But anyway, let's start talking about it. So I like system design. In my research, I wrote about gameplay design patterns and mechanics and so on. So a pattern, for example, is Game Plus, a New Game Plus, which are different. They are similar but very different, but they come from the same thing, right? So what I will do is talk about stuff like this. So Game Plus then. What is Game Plus? Game Plus is when you beat the last boss of the game. In Pokemon, there will be the Elite Four, right? Except the newest game. But normally in Pokemon, you defeat Elite Four and then you get the Game Plus, right? Which means that you unlock the Battle Tower, for example, right? That's classic Pokemon. You get the Battle Tower unlock thing. Here's the image here. I'm trying to I'm just doing this offhand. So typically Pokemon, for example, you beat the Elite Four, you get the Battle Tower thing, and you can go there, right? You can't find the Battle Tower before you are in the Game Plus stage, right? So that's a Game Plus thing. And a lot of other games has vastly better Game Plus, Okay, vastly better. But that's the Game Plus thing. For example, New Game Plus is when you beat the game and you start from scratch, right? But maybe you have some extra stuff, so you can replay the game. But like, no, you have the dragon ring, so you can open its doors or something, right? Or it's more storyline. That's a New Game Plus, right? So I'm gonna cover this kind of stuff, and we're gonna talk about a lot of games here, right? Like Suikoden, Dragon Quest, oh yeah, this is it, right? I have Suikoden, of course, in mint condition, right? So since I bought Suikoden 2, which is like the best game ever, but then after that, every Suikoden game I bought them in mint condition. So, for example, here's also then mid condition of Suikoden. This is strategy Suikoden versus like tactical JRPGs. I bought 2 versions each time. So yeah, this is also a video for me to sit there and like be like, oh, look at my collection, look at my games. That's half the video is just like me going out, and I should maybe buy one of those. But I don't like having games. I like having games like this more. I can see that. Whatever, that's not the stuff. Anyway, let's start with the list here. It'll be minor spoilers, of course, because I will mention maybe like the ugliest boss ever, right? So, you know, like minor spoilers. But you probably have already played these games, or you've never played them, right? Probably. So anyway, let's start. New Game Plus is a great... Oh, sorry, Game Plus. So Game Plus is you beat the game, right? And you get some extra stuff. And most game has this in the role-playing domain, right? Domain has a lot of this stuff. For example, in Pokemon, you do have the battle tower, you do have like getting the legendary Pokemon usually after you beat the game, right? That's usually how it is. And most other game has similar stuff to this. And what's the important Game Plus then? The important of Game Plus, and I would say Game Plus typically also has the extra secret boss, right? But that's another pattern though. But the Game Plus, of course, unlocks some new areas, right? Final Fantasy love doing that. You get some new items, you get some new challenges, right? But the Game Plus can really mean anything. You can be in an item store. For example, Game Plus in Final Fantasy 13, which is here, I think. So I have 2 many games. There it is. God, I love Lightning. I think she's probably the most attractive Final Fantasy character ever. Oh, there it is. They have camera now. Yeah, so Lightning. I really love Lightning. I like everyone. Fang, Vanille, Lightning. Yeah, so whatever. In F13, when you beat the game, you get another talent tree, right? A talent level, I guess, right? So you have this, you know, your talent tree, right? And it's like layer, dun. And I think it's a 7th layer. I might be wrong in the number here, but I think the 7th layer is only unlocked after you beat the last boss, right? And then you have more stats there, you have more abilities and so on. So in FF13, you actually can do, I think, everything in the game, more or less, every boss and so on. But you basically can't win. So yeah, unless you actually do the Game Plus thing and beating the last boss, you won't actually be able to like defeat the last, the other extra boss, because you'll be too weak. You need the Game Plus abilities, right? So for example, typical like a bit simple Game Plus thing, yeah, but works, right? And it kind of like hard locks you away, but you have the option to try the other bosses. So I kind of like it because it means you can, you know, try to do everything extra, and then it's like, here's probably like where it's threshold. I have to go and beat the narrative now. Pretty standard, right? A lot of game has this. So many games has the Game Plus thing locked away from stuff and so on, right? And that's really a bit Pokemon face. So yeah, Pokemon is nothing. Right? Then you of course have games like Romance and Sega, great example of this. You have the New Game Plus. The New Game Plus is similar, right? Current Trigger test episode 1, yeah. So New Game Plus means that you beat the game, and when you beat the game, you can replay the game. So in Romancing Sega, you usually have several characters, 8 instead of or so on. So if you beat the game, you can then play another character, right? Or you can of course do it whatever. But to get the full story of this game and face the actual true secret ending and so on, you have to actually replay the game at least 3 times usually. So, and you have to play it perfectly, basically. It's really complicated to actually do it. But you have to do that, right? And like you have all these different characters and so on, yeah. So, you know, that's a reason to replay the game, replayability and so on. I think one game in the modern days of gaming that's really successful with that was, of course, Nier Automata. That's a really good game with the New Game Plus. So, minor spoiler, right? It's a very minor spoiler, but when you beat Nier, you get a New Game Plus. And then you play another character instead. But it's basically the same thing, but not really. Yes, you play the game again. Some things different, like gameplay-wise, but the story is vastly changed, you see some more stuff and so on, and you do that in another Game Plus one, yeah. That's typically a New Game Plus, like a very good New Game Plus, because you really get another storyline, and it adds on top of your previous knowledge, right? So you really want to replay the game, and of course, Nier is a very good game, and that was very, very good New Game Plus. Pokemon, of course, has never had anything close to New Game Plus, to be frank, right? Could you imagine having it? So that's what kind of a point of the video, right? Could you imagine having Pokemon where you beat the game, then it's like, oh, no, you can replay the game as another character. You can be an evil guy, you can be this thing. Nintendo wouldn't do evil, but you know what I mean, more an anti-hero. Yeah, you do something else. You could be the champion, or like, let's say a New Game Plus means you know the champion, so you walk around in the world and people will like challenge you, like new, upcoming train, new other kids will attack you and so on, right? And they're like, you're the champion, you are this, yeah, I will defeat you and so on. And then it will be really challenging, and you kind of replay the game, but everyone's like asking to get you, so all the trains that are in the world are like, maximum strength and so on, trying to defeat you, and you get like a new rival. That would be cool. It's the same storyline, but a new rival is that this rival is like, you're the champion, I will defeat you, and this rival is from another region, super strong, it's the same storyline except primarily, but the rival is 10 times stronger, etc. Right? That could be really interesting. Something like that. That would be like, wow, Pokemon is doing it. But yeah, that would be, for example. Oh god, it's never gonna happen. But you know what I mean. That would be cool. Of course, all games New Game Plus, but it's a great thing, right? I think one example. I think a great example of New Game Plus is, before I forget here, is Vagrant Story, which is here in the collection, yeah. Vagrant Story, a 40-40 Famitsu game from, of course, same person did FFT, FF12, Ogre Battle, Tactics Ogre, so on, great all good games. Vagrant Story, spoilers now then, so spoilers. When you defeat the game, you are gonna get this key, okay? Key, I say key like this. So you get the key, and with this key you can open up specific doors you couldn't do in the first playthrough. So you really want to replay the game, because there are like 10 or 11 doors, something like that, which you can't open, so you can't get the full map, and you're like, what is in the door? And some of them are just going to give like a better workshop, better crafting and so on, and some other ones are going to, open up some extra bosses and something much harder. But also the storyline is different and so on, so a little bit, so it's very interesting. That's kind of the point I want to spot back a story, but it's a very, mentally changing storyline. So when you beat the game, you get a lot of like reveals, and then replaying the game, those reveals, also the storyline makes a lot more sense if you've beaten the game once anyway. So you kind of want to replay the game anyway to get the storyline, because then you have another perspective on the storyline and so as well, though. So get that of New Game Plus. So that's right. That's a Game Plus and New Game Plus. Cool mechanics. Another mechanic then, which is very, very classic, right, is... Oh, where's the wrong button? Sorry. So I'm going to write like this now. So what do you write now? Yeah, I will write probably the most important thing. The Game Plus is of course the most obvious thing, but mini games, okay? That didn't fit on my screen. Mini game, there we go. Mini games, okay? This is the biggest lack in Pokemon. Let's be honest, it's the biggest lack in Pokemon. So most of the other JRPG has a lot of mini games. So many examples of mini games, and I think that, like for example, FF13, which is still there, right there. Like the failure of this game, primarily, I think it's a decent game, but the failure of this game is primarily that, exactly like Pokemon, it has nothing else in like the core, except the core gameplay and monster hunts, kind of like the boss battles, right? Because there is no golden saucer, there's nothing of that, right? There's no, they have this casino world thing, but then it just disappears. And with my damn golden saucer, here we go, bam, there we go, golden saucer, right? So golden saucer, of course, the FF7 classic casino world, right? Which is filled of mini games. Remember that the golden saucer has the chocobo racing, it has this roulette casino thing, it has the whole, it has the classic FF7 racing thing, right? But it also has the weird kind of roller coaster thing where you kind of like shoot stuff, yeah, it's like a game, I guess like an FPS thing. It has so much stuff there. And that's just the goal sort of thing. And most of the fantasy games in particular, it has like a theme park, right, of several mini games. One thing that I didn't like how the world itself, but I kind of like the mini games. Like F13-2, they had like this chocobo racing thing as well. You can steam and train them. It's like a casino dimension world. It's pretty cool. It's a lot better than FF13 at least. And so on, right? So a typical thing then is, I think this is a main issue, right, for Pokemon in general, is that, man, every other JRPG game has mini games. There's so many of them. Like FF15, again, chocobo racing, fishing, fishing is classic, right? God. The card games, I mean, there's so many examples, especially in Final Fantasy. So, I mean, you can just fill the list, right? Blitzball, of course, being the best, probably. I think Blitzball is still probably the best thing. I have covered that a lot more here now. Hot, ice, cold. That was the worst one. I freaking ice one. My God, there's so many of them. God, what is the best one? Blitzball is probably the best one. Oh, here's my GIF here. Yeah. Blitzball, right, the best one. Talk about it more in detail soon here, but DQ11 has the horse and so on, right? I mean, I can sit here for days just talking about all the mini games of Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest and so on. So there's a lot of reasons why that's okay. So first of all, mini games has to be, but this is, I'd say, much better if they are connected to the main game. Right? So you don't want to have a mini game that's just like a standalone game and has no effects on the actual, not the storyline, but for example, a good example of a mini game, which is the best mini game I think, in my opinion, still is the Blitzball, right? So Blitzball is of course the game FF10 as an own sport game. It's a game by itself. It's fantastic, but if you play Blitzball, you also get the best weapon, Tuvaka. Of course, the best character, because he's also voiced by, Sorrow. So, he's the best character, because it's Sorrow. And he's also, for that matter, Ichigo was his Tidus, right? So, so you get weapon to Vaka. So you want to play Blitzball the minigame, because that's getting the best ultimate weapon to also the best character. And Vaka is truly the best character. Like 1 million damage per game. Vaka is incredibly OP. Much better than the characters, trust me. Incredibly better. I mean, incredibly. You just do the roulette and you kill the boss level. Yeah, much better. So, I guess you can do Yuna, do Jimbo, and so on. But generally, Vaka damage, absolutely best. So you want to do the minigame to get the thing right. You have the lightning thing, for example, right? You want to dodge the lightning thing. I have a GIF of the thing. So I'm doing this kind of an off shot here, but yeah, where's my lightning image? So, man, didn't I get an image thing? God damn it. I think I had like an awesome GIF of this thing where you fail. Nope. Whatever. I explain it. So, I can't find it. I explain it. So you play FF10 to get Kimara's best weapon. You have to dodge 200 lightning bolts. And it's freaking horrible. It's very horrible, okay? That's a horrible minigame. But you have to dodge lightning bolts. I think it's funny though. It's boring as hell, but it's funny. Kind of like a weird, irritating way. But if you do it, you get the best weapon. You can do it early too. So it's pretty cool in that sense. You can do it very early if you know about it. Making Kimari, OP in the early games. Or mid-game, I guess. But there's a lot of that stuff, right? And they're all connected back to the main core gameplay, right? And Pokemon has like, you get the casino stuff in the first game, you can get like Polygon, right? Yeah, Polygon, okay. Pokemon really have a lot more than stuff, right? For example, Pokemon could have minigames. They can have so many vast different minigames when you play with the character, right? For example, cooking, I would say, is a failure in Pokemon. Let's be honest here, the cooking is massively disappointing, and I think a great game, really great game is cooking. Sorry for a little look for my image. I have so many images here. So I have so many images. It's got images. So cooking in Suikoden 2 then. For example, again, great game. In Suikoden you have the cooking game, which is a game by itself. You have tournaments, you fight with people, so on, right? And here we get Pokemon. Right? Pokemon can have this too, where you have this current thing and you have to combat other trainers. And you can through Pokemon, right? And if you do it better, you get some trophies, and that could easily unlock some food-based Pokemon, right? And so on, right? Get some awards, maybe some berries. I would say like some berries should be locked away behind the cooking things. So you have to do the cooking mini game to get those berries. That'll be kind of fun and so on, right? So if you want to be competitive, you have to do that stuff. So I know it's not like forced, but that's typically what you want to have, right? Like the important thing is it has to be fun by itself, right? As long as the mini game is fun by itself, then it's fine, right? Yeah. So I think that would be great. You will, you will work out and you will try to get that the berries or whatever, right? By doing that stuff. And even better if the mini games can connect to each other. So if you have a mini game with cooking and another mini game, let's say some kind of like brawling mini game, the cooking berries, you have to have them to beat this thing and so on, right? So you can connect the mini games, like for example fantasy, done that sometimes. So on. That's really good. And then back to the main core, right? So for example, again, Blitzball is great because when you play the main narration in Final Fantasy, you will find new players during the narration. So the longer you get in the game, you can find new races. They're good at different stuff in the Blitzball game. And that gives you back to the minigame, right? So you can want to play the game, right? You have the language thing in FF10, the embed thing to unlock God Hand and so on to Riku. That's okay, it's a bad image here, but basically it's like a language in FF10, right? It looks like this, which you have to unlock. And that you do by playing the game, finding stuff around, talking to people and so on, right? And the more you play the game, the more you understand, the better you can solve the puzzles and the minigame and the codes of the bad language, right? Which is a really good addition. So, minigames then, very important, right? We can find them in so many games. We can have them in, they're so common, right? They're so common, and there's so many of them. I can sit there for hours talking about the minigames. But the basic point here, of course, is that Pokemon has like no minigames. Pokemon has a chance, for example, to have the cooking for a shield to be a minigame, but it isn't, right? It isn't at all. And that's very important. There could have been it could have been a game, right? There could have been a game. I think that's like it's made to be that thing. I mentioned earlier, but for example, DQ11, you have to do the mini game to get the weapons, to get the supreme light sword shield. But you can't get it at full draconium, which is stupid. But yeah, but you have to do that and so on. Right? It's classic, right? It's classic. We are thinking of here it is. Another thing then is of course buffing you up, right? So another thing. This is I guess a mini game, but this is called this is like pottering. This is called pottering / like min max, I guess. Yeah, this stuff here could read it, but yeah, this pattern is called like this, something like that. I can't get out. There we go. Pottering min max thing. So Pokemon, I feel, and this I'm not sure. I'm trying to not be too much like Sword Shield sucks, but this I think is really disappointing actually. Is that you have the cooking right in Pokemon, similar to like for example FF15's cooking, which the fishing is. For example, great example, right? You have the fishing in 15. You do the fishing, that boosts your other minigame, right? Makes cooking better, right? You can't really like compete in the cooking thing, but still, you get better food. So you fish, then you cook, and then you get really good health. I think the best thing gives you like 1000 health and like a lot of attack power. It's like that big fish up at Vesper Pool. I think it's the best one. Whatever. That is a classic thing too, right? You have a cooking thing, Monster Hunters 2 and so on, but some gets it really well, right? You have also like a craftable thing. And by doing that, you get a lot better stats and so on. Right? In Pokemon, it's not there. I don't want to guess too much Pokemon, but still, I think that's a great example of like, why is the current thing? It's not a mini game. You're not fighting anyone else in the cooking, which is boring, and you're also not getting like extra stats, because that would have been a great way, I feel, to make the game even more competitive. Right? So you have the cooking thing, and then you have to like, well, before you have even an online PvP battle, if you feed them this stuff, to get more stats, right? You have to farm this stuff, you do this stuff, and so on. Yes, I know it's a lot of stuff to do, but like that would add into the game, right? Or maybe if you don't want to have the PvP, because it would be like a lot of grinding for PvP, you have it only for the PvE stuff, but still, you will not go around and find. And then someone say, well, the game is already too easy though for single player. I know it is. We'll comment to that soon here. But yes, it is very easy. So that would probably help. But if the game was a lot harder, right, for single player, it would be interesting to have that the curve will give you more stats, right, temporarily, for like an hour or so. So you have to like farm it to beat the bosses. That would be really interesting. But yeah, for example, that's something the game is sorely lacking, right? Sorely lacking. Another game thing then, of course, is the crafting, right? The crafting, and I guess customization, but it was crafting, classic thing, right? And this is something that a lot of games does well. This game, almost every role-playing game has crafting, right? And like World of Warcraft, all the MMO has crafting and so on. But I'm talking about crafting as a mini-game here. It's kind of a great example here of Rogue Galaxy. That's the wrong game. Too many images. How did I think about this thing? There it is. Sorry, I'm just a little lazy here, so I just did a lot of images there. Yeah. So Rogue Galaxy, I think it really exemplifies crafting as a great example here. So you have, like chemistry in DQ8, right? You have the DQ11 committed as well. But in crafting in Rogue Galaxy, it basically is a game by itself. You like have to like build this, you have to like grind and build like a factory every time, and every weapon is like a unique factory. It's like a freaking game to use like craft a sword. You have to get the material and do this mini game, but it's really funny actually. I like it. Yeah, it's like a funny mini game. It's like a puzzle. Each time you're crafting, it's a puzzle, right? And that is exciting. That's fun. All the games, of course, has also crafting, right? Shamus Department, DQ 8. Was here, yeah. Amazing games. It's my favorite in DQ games. DQ 11, of course, has the crafting, right? Pretty simple. I prefer the 8 one, but it's still there, right? Yeah, it's still there. And crafting, of course, Pokemon. Completely non-existent, right? Which is kind of weird, really, because that's something the game we should have too, honestly. Because yeah, crafting in like almost every other role-playing game, you have some kind of crafting again, right? And preferably, then you make the crafting into a mini game, right? So you have to do something and experimenting, do some stuff, and there's a lot of stuff to that. Like Pokemon, in my opinion, should introduce crafting in a way that to get some of the best items, right, for the Pokemon, at least for PvP then. And some for PvE, I guess, if the game had actual PvP elements. It would be, to get the item here, this thing, a crafting mini game, and then you get the better life orb, like plus life, super life orb or something, right? Whatever, sunglasses or, the endurance belt or whatever and so on. And you have to craft them somehow. So a crafting mini game, absolutely. That would have been a great example to the game. So again, right, that's a kind of a good example of, you can find them in so many games, of course, crafting. But I think in reality, could actually be my favorite crafting of all time. Another great crafting game for that matter, before I forget here, there's a lot of games to talk about. It's Vagrant Story again. Vagrant Story has a very interesting crafting because the items kind of inherent what you fight. So if you fight something like a dragon a lot of times, your sword is like anti-dragon now. So you get like stats anti-dragon. Then if you craft this sword into a crossbow, so you melt like the silver from your silver sword, silver is under whatever. Silver sword or under sword and whatever. You smelt these things with silver and anti and dragon. So very good against a kind of zombie dragon, right? If the game had it. But yeah. So you craft this silver blade down to a crossbow instead, with some other stuff, right? Then this crossbow will now inherent its parents' abilities. It's like an anti-undead dragon crossbow. And you have to kind of like min-max a lot in this game, combining stuff and so on. And it's quite like risky how you do it, and you can ruin your weapon and so on. It's quite hard. Yeah, it's quite, but you do it a lot, and it's very interesting in the system how it works, min-max. The mathematics behind it is very cool. So, for example, another stuff, right? I guess what Pokemon has, and I have to say that sure. Pokemon has that, I suppose, in its PvP breeding, yeah. It's kind of like the breeding stuff. But I mean, Pokemon should extend that, right, and have it for breeding and for items and so on, right? Why only have it for breedings? But that's basically, I guess, Pokemon has to, I suppose. But it's only for Pokemon, so you could definitely extend it, right, to more stuff than just the breeding thing. So that's one thing, definitely, the game lacks. Another thing the game lacks, and another classic thing, where's my damn text thing? Here it is. Another classic thing the game lacks, right, is of course the base home, or I guess home base or castle, right? The castle, of course, it's gonna be mentioned here now. But yeah, so another classic mini game stuff, right? Or I'm sorry, mini game, but the extra content stuff is building your home, right? You see it in a lot of MMORPGs, you have your home and so on, but that's for noobs, okay? What you wanna have is the Suikoden franchise thing. You wanna have that thing, right? Where it's like you recruit someone. Oh, he's a blacksmith? Oh, suddenly have a blacksmith at my castle, right? Yeah. So in these scoring games, all of them except the 4, because you get a boat in a ship instead. So you have a massive ship instead of having like a castle. Instead you have this thing instead. You have like a ship that everyone lives on, and you get more stuff on the ship, which makes no sense, but you get more ship and stuff. In the other games, you have your castle that's more stuff, more houses, and so on when you play the game and stuff like that. So that's like classic, and like you can build your own, and so on. Like that. All school games. The great example of a game where if you recruit someone, then they get new stuff. You recruit this lady. She's a wizard. She will now so now you have like a a magic store, or this girl runs like an inn. So now you have like a bar at your at your castle, and so on. Right, and they also add into your strategic moments for that as well. They're both for the city and for your strategy gameplay. So they're doing both, and they fight with you. So they have like 3 different reasons to recruit people. But basically, your castle or your ship then grows with you, right, as you recruit people. And at least like 80 or so characters are bonus secret characters. So depending on when you recruit them, you have more stuff in the game. If you miss someone, and you can actually permanently miss character in the game, you will actually lack some stuff in your game, or at least there'll be different endings. Not later on. And other games, of course, does this as well, right? It's a very classic, I feel, how say it, JRPG thing, right? So for example, Breath of Fire, which is also this game too, now, yeah. Also does it. But Breath of Fire, for example, right? One of my favorite games actually. It's Breath of Fire 3 there. So the damn price down there, yeah. So Breath of Fire then does this very well, where you have fairies in both the third and the fourth game. It's basically the same thing in both of them. So you have these fairies that you want to help out, right? After you kill that dolphin from Australia. Yeah, you have this mate, you have this weird dolphin, mecha dolphin from Australia. It's really evil, but yeah. So you save them, then you have to build the village, and send them on mission. They have different like professions, they have different jobs, you have to help them out. You basically breed them kind of weird. And I guess they're all futunaris because they're like all girls. Well, I don't think they're all girls. I think they actually have both genders. But yeah, it's kind of hinted to that in my opinion that they're all futunaris. But yeah, so you kind of breed them, you kind of like marriage them and pair them together and do jobs and so on. And they basically get a bigger and bigger village, right? You have this, yeah, they have missions and skills and so on. And it's really cool. So you start like a little small village with like 4 or 5 fairies, and then you breed them up, but you also have to build and so on. And you get a bigger and bigger city. And of course, by doing that, these fairy girls, they will help you with, like, you know, they will have item stores, they have secret items, otherwise, right? They can make weapons for you and so on. So you get stuff to the main game, right? And then in the main game, you find new stuff you can give to the fairies, which improves the village. So back and forth, right? If you can ignore the fairy city build if you want to, but by doing that, you get a lot of items. And by going back and forth between that, you get stronger, right, in the actual core gameplay because it helps you a lot doing that, right? So one thing that I think a lot of people want to see in Pokemon, and that's why I mentioned here because I think it's very, very big in Pokemon, is that I want to see that if I get these Pokemons, right, and I have my home village, whatever Pokemons, but they are not with me, right, they are in this, like in the last game, right, I want to see them having, you know, like building up a house, or at least, or probably bigger, where they all live, and depending on what Pokemon I have in this house, it should change, right? Or I have a lot of what Pokemons, or suddenly I have pool at home, right? Okay. I have a lot of fire Pokemons, I get a volcano at my house, right? Because they're breeding up and so on. And I would love if that was permanent, honestly, so you have to like, replay the game to get another house and so on. Or maybe you can like it's probably too not user friendly, so you probably have to rechange them, and if you wait an hour, they will like reshape your state, right? But that would be awesome, and depending on, if I have like a water stuff, and I have fire and water Pokemons, then I guess of course kind of a hot onsen, right? So you know an onsen, and then I probably get like a harem girls appearing because like a lot of cute girls would be like, oh, I have an onsen, I want to be the place, yeah. And then you can meet those girls, and then you can have some dating or so whatever. But yeah, and if you have rock Pokemons, you get a shop or something. I don't know. So that would have been fantastic, right? If the game had different kind of home environment, or like a base environment, depending on what Pokemons you have, and that gives you items and or even Pokemons, right? Of course, Pokemons too. So if you have, again, then I have the fire Pokemons, I get a fire area, like a volcano. Other wild Pokemons like will appear there, like in the last game. Right? Okay, if they appear, they can find them and so on. But this would be more specific. Right? I have a fire Pokemon, so maybe even legendaries like Moltres will appear and so on. Rarely, but I have to have the volcano to get it right. So after that, you can change it to an ice place, whatever. Yeah. That would be amazing, right? And it will make you, depending on what you catch and so on, more important in the beginning. And you can min-max that around and so on. I would be like, that would be so cool. That would be. And I think, again, in so many other role-playing games, that's a common thing. You have your base, same in this game. And in that game, you have a Shaman thing. The Sky thing on. That game, no. Soul Man, I guess, you have the Roam thing. But 5-5, you have the same thing again. The Sky for Mission has the weird sort of things there. Fantasy doesn't really have that. They don't kind of miss out on that, yeah. But whatever. So you have that. That would be amazing. You can find. I think that's more of the rare case, honestly, to have a good village thing. I think a lot of the MMORPGs has it like a very casual kind of. You have a home, you can build like the furniture or whatever. But I want to have like a real effect on the game and so on. That would be amazing. I think that's probably honestly, I think the content I probably want the most, except blast bosses in the game. Probably. I think it would be amazing, but that's my opinion. But yeah. I'm just like, that would have been so good. I'm getting depressed now, because that would have been That would be the first thing I want. I think I used to love that. Yeah, just like the pressure coming in here. Anyway, next thing. Let's talk about it. End bosses, or extra bosses, I guess. Extra bosses plus 100. That's the cap pattern. As I publish this thing, I can name it what I want. I think it's what it says in my research paper. I think there is 2 different patterns. There's extra boss, and there's extra boss plus 100, or bosses plus 100, something like that. I wrote the paper, so I should know what it's called, but whatever. So one thing Pokemon, right, surely lacks, and this is probably the most obvious issue in the game, I think most people are complaining about, is that the game is ridiculously easy, right? The game is ridiculously easy, and there's one thing that Final Fantasy, Wild Arms is great at this, for example, Wild Arms is bottom here, yeah, Wild Arms is great at this, for example, is having, extra hard bosses, right? So, for example, you have the classic Barbados in the desert, and it's like something is hiding in the there's something approaching from under the ground, and you get like, oh my god, what is this thing? Yeah, and it's a super boss, right? Ruby weapon, classic 757, and so on, right? So let's talk about it, yeah. So in honestly, like every other JRPG game out there, basically, you have some like super strong extra bosses, right? They're gonna appear and beat the crap out of you, and you have to really, really train to beat them and so on, yeah. And it's very, very common, right? So you beat the end game necessarily. This is what I mean earlier. So game plus open some stuff. Most of the game, except with Wild Arms, you don't need to beat the last boss to get all the secret bosses. They're already there. There's no reason to actually defeat the last boss. You don't want to. I mean, but you know what I mean. So sometimes you have to beat the narration to get the stuff right. But I think every half of the games you don't. But anyway, the point is that you can find these bosses, right, that are like 10 times stronger than the last boss of the narration. And that's kind of the extra boss content pattern. And then you have the plus 100, which is like, oh, you can find a boss, and she is like level 2,500, and you're like level 50 or something. So for example, this guy has that, right? This guy a great game. He's like, oh, this guy. Here's this guy a soundtrack for the third game. It's mint condition. And here's the 3D universe. Yeah, this is like this guy. Like this is like kind of the 3D universe is like one of those crossover games. So you have like Lahore and Etna, and you have the other, from other JRPG games, so on, for example. So I have both of that. Yeah. I think I almost have every Nippon Ichi game in mint as well. Where did I put that game? Somewhere else. Could it be here? Oh, here it is. Here's like some, Phantom Brave and so on. Yeah, here we go. Oh yeah, the storage. Lapula Tactics. Here we go. It's like my Nippon Ichi. Here's like the Nippon Ichi bag here. Oh yeah, here we go. It's like, yeah, this sky out here. That storage with that later. Here it is. Classic Nippon Ichi. Mint, of course. Yes. This is half the videos should be showing games. Yeah, whatever. So in all of, especially in Nippon Ichi games, to be fair, that's why I mentioned it, they have incredibly harder bosses compared to what the main story is. So in Disgaea 1, the last boss in the game is level 90, right? And most games are like to level 100, so that makes sense. A level 90, the angel or whatever it is, yeah, it's level 90. But the last secret boss, she's level 2,500. So it's like, yeah, she's a little stronger than the last boss of the generation. Yeah, a few times a higher level there. So obviously, the stats of this, she's like the demon over another universe, yeah, Netherworld, yeah. She's obviously like infinitely stronger than the level 90 boss. And I mean, the game goes like this, right, in power level. So yeah, she's, if you try her on level 90, you can't even hit her, right, because her elevation is so high, obviously. So you have to farm for, 100 hours to get, yeah. And so on. And that's the, the plus 100. It was incredibly a lot stronger than the main story boss. And of course, if you talk Pokemon here, imagine Pokemon having like, oh, you go on this thing, and then red is there, right? Because as you all know, I think so at least, from like Silver and Gold, when you beat Silver and Gold, right, you get the whole first game again, much more content, right? It's a game plus thing. And you do all the gyms again. And after you do all the gyms again, you get that extra boss, extra hard, right, which is Ash, red, yeah. And he's like almost max level. He's like level 80. Yeah, they're almost max level. And he's a lot harder than anything else in the game, of course. He still does a game 100 plus boss though. That would be even cooler. But still though, he's up there, right? He's up there. And of course, there's so many games that excel at this thing, right? So, for example, as I mentioned earlier, the ugliest thing ever, Osma, which is FF9, where the last boss is really easy to get FF9. And then you have Osma, which is pretty hard. He's not a weapon, but he's pretty hard. You can have Queen now with a limit glove thing, so you punch it with the limit glove, you do full damage each time. What you should do is using Queen the blue max ability. So if Queen has 1 health, obviously Queen has body and the Queen has a foot now, yeah. If Queen has 1 health left and he does Doomsday Osmos, Queen can do like a full damage attack each round and then it dies pretty easily. But if you don't do that, it was pretty hard, and you can Amaranth to win Chakra, whatever. but that's a perfect example of the fantasy games are pretty easy. Let's be fair. F13 I liked because it was actually much harder normally than narration-wise. It wasn't the hardest game ever, but it was much harder than they usually are. So FF10 is incredibly easily the main storyline compared to the bosses, right? But the Pokemon is hard, but compared to all the games, it's easy. But FF Fantasy game in particular are quite famous, right? For always having like a lot of extra bosses, which means that they can have a main story, which is much longer for the Pokemon, much longer, right? And you can have the main story, and after you beat the main story, which is pretty easy, right? So, which I think is great. It means that anyone can beat the main story, get the storyline from the game, and after you beat the main story, you have all these extra bosses to do, right? So you get that challenge as well in the game. So the core gameplay is much harder, right? So I think that, if you want to, right, after you've seen the full story, you can spend another 100 hours grinding out and beating the bosses. Great, that's great. And imagine Pokemon. That's probably the most obvious thing in Pokemon, in my opinion. I mean, as I mentioned, the home thing, I think would be the coolest, probably. It would be the easiest. Not the easiest to implement, but I think that would be the coolest. Because you'd be like, oh, I have a fire home, or you have a few areas and you rebuild it and Pokemon, whatever. So, but the end boss thing is probably the easiest thing to implement. As I mentioned earlier, feasible stuff, right? End boss thing is so easy to implement, also. So easy to implement. The only thing you need to do is having, 20 trainers, right? Where it has like level 99 Pokemons. They're all max level and they're all like really good stats. Perfect IV, perfect, a perfect team, right? Yeah. Why doesn't they do that? That probably is my biggest, to be honest, right? Because that would be so easy. Let's have red, let's have blue, let's have silver and gold. All of the, old Pokemon trainers should be appear. FF12 example, great example of that. FF12. One of my absolute favorite RPG game, FF12, amazing game. Of course, Dragon Stories on one same creator. He unfortunately went insane doing the game, but yeah, FF12, amazing game from the guy that did Yasuno Matsuno also did Ogre Battle and so on. FF12 is amazing in that sense. It's filled with so many bosses. So the game has like freaking bosses everywhere. Every damn previous Final Fantasy character is there. It's a kind of redone version. Oh, that guy's from that boss, and Gilgamesh appears. So there's so much extra bosses on all the games, and the references and so on all over the game. Yeah. But imagine Pokemon having like all the trainers from the previous games, right? Each one has them, red, blue, as I mentioned. But they all have the Pokemon on max level, right? Or at least like level 9 something. Yeah, level 9. Let's say level 9. Yeah. 99. They all have their perfect teams, 6 Pokemon each, and they have the different teams, right, based on kind of their personality, the magnet and so on, yeah. And they are spread around in the world, hidden away, you have to come and defeat them and so on, right, and they can maybe a tournament, but you have to beat maybe this guy first, and red is the last one, of course, you have to beat other ones, and then, and so on. That would be amazing. Oh my god, I'm getting sad thinking about it. That would be amazing. There would be a challenge in the PvE stuff, and, you could have, like, maybe the latest one, like the Aloam champion, would be the weakest, right? So the moon and sun, they would be the weakest because they're the newer champions. So you will suffer them, right? Fighting them. You probably don't have to, but preferably you can fight them in any order you want, except maybe red and blue because they're the most traditional guys. But yeah, except red and blue, the other ones, I think preferably you can do it in any order you want. But you probably want to start with moon and sun because they're the weakest, because they're the youngest, and then they go up from age and they get harder. So that would have been amazing. And it would be so easy to implement. It would be so easy to implement because that is really easy. I mean, you already have all the code. For it's just a Pokemon battle. It's just a trainer battle. You have the AI, arguably, but everything is already there, right? Everything is already there. The only thing you need to do is the model for the old trainers. If you don't have all of them, you don't have the model for that. and someone has to do the content design specifically to balance content, kind of to be like, what Pokemon should I have? Pikachu, but you know what I mean. Someone has to figure out, okay, what is a good team and so on, right? Primarily, but it's a pretty easy job, yeah. Like that's not that hard, and they don't, yeah, and like they're mainly gonna base on like the manga and anime and so on that they had and stuff like that, reference to that stuff. So it'd be like, well, in this anime season, he used this stuff, or in the manga you're following the different characters more in detail. So it's basically the manga team, right? Plus maybe one Pokemon, 6 Pokemon, so yeah. So it's pretty easy. Not much of a job for them to do, right? Yeah. It would be really easy. And it would be, they have all the content here already. More or less, except the models for the assets. Everything else is basically there. So it's very little job to implement it. And then you can, preferably hide them in dungeons and so on. But you can also use be in cities and to go challenge them. Yeah, as a bare minimum, you could just go and talk to them. They could be like, Moon Girl, she hangs out at this bar. You can go talk to her. You can use challenge her. Yeah, it could be that too. And it could be like, well, before you can fight them, she's like, well, I want to fight the champion. And she could be, you have to first beat the game, and then you can challenge them. Maybe you could meet her at the first village city of the game, and you're like, oh, that's the Moon Girl. Okay, she's Miss Moon. Okay, then I go beat the game, I go back, and then I beat Sailor Moon. That could have been a thing, right? That could have been a great thing. And very simple to do, extremely simple to do from a technical standpoint, and also from a design standpoint, because you can just follow basically what you already established in previous games and so on, right? And you say, oh, she has these Pokemon, yeah. Super easy. And that's probably one of the lamest things. I compare the game, a lot to DQ11, where the hell I placed that game. That's it's under Bloodstain here. So, DQ11, right? Yeah. So example, DQ11 is the game to Switch. And it's a PS4 game, whatever. But that game has storyline on storyline on storyline. It never ends the game, and you beat the game and you beat the game again. It's like game plus. You have to beat like twice. Yeah, kind of. It just keeps going. And yeah, like how hard can it be to have something extra after you beat the game? Because obviously Pokemon, the weakest issue of it probably is that it's just so damn easy, right? With the XP share and so on. But also like why not make it like in Final Fantasy? Always Final Fantasy. Also easy casual game, the main storyline, very easy. But when you beat the game, right, you get a very good extra bosses afterwards. Yeah, like how hard to do that? So that's pretty strange and quite disappointing, right? Quite disappointing, yeah. But it's just that's the easy, obvious thing. I probably should have started with this thing, but because this is the easiest thing. Having end game bosses, right? Having end game bosses, it's just that extra thing. But whatever. Another thing, of course, is the game's narration or the text. Let's talk about it. Text stuff. Yeah. So like this, right? So for example, Phantasy Star 3 was the first game, I believe, to do this thing. DQ5 is the Heavenly Bright, famous for doing this thing. But in these games, you can marry different females, or you have different children that will affect your gameplay a little bit and the storyline and so on. I mean, branching paths, right? Yeah, obviously Pokemon probably would be like you can have sex to get children, but maybe something like that, like a little different end game content depending on your choices. Like Seiken 3, Rhapsody of the Mana 2 in the West, coming soon, Trail of Mana. So minor spoiler. Very minor spoiler. You have different starter characters in the Mana game, and depending on which one you have different end dungeons, right? Different end dungeons, different end bosses. Not really a spoiler, it's been the baddest feature, yeah. It's gonna be cool outcome, yeah. Obviously, play that game. The new version of Trial of Mana would be awesome. But yeah, for example, so why can't Pokemon have like if your starter Pokemon is this Pokemon, you get another storyline, yeah. A little bit, yeah. Another dungeon, another champion, whatever. Or a different team to face, something. Like, use something, right? Yeah. And the ability. I mean, you remember the Monkey Brothers? They did that, yeah. They had the Monkey Brother would take the Pokemon you were weak against. So that was a little, player choice there, yeah. But very minor, but it was there. So, like, code-wise, it's basically like if X face this team, if Y face this team, right? If yeah, code-wise it's incredibly easy, and the Pokemon is like an array use called array filled with objects. Pokemon is an object there. it's like an element value in array, so just like I guess it should add it. So it's a very easy code to do that. Obviously, someone has done the content design of adding the different teams or whatever for the champion depending on your starter, but it's like otherwise very easy, and you have to have the code anyway for different Pokemon, so you need the code anyway, right? So obviously the champion would have like the same main Pokemon, his like anime Pokemon, but the rest of them could be different depending on your starter, right? And that would be, I mean, all very different, and that could be easy implemented because it's just like an if statement. If X do this thing, and then yes, someone has to decide what 5 should it be, but that is arguably a minute work to hours of planning it out. But like, it's not that hard. It's not hard. It's even like 5-star Pokemon that are good together. Like you can do it pretty easily. Yeah. So that stuff, right? Choices in games, narration of choices. It's also something it doesn't have. Another thing, this is a video, yeah. Another JRPG stuff people has, it's like, Persona 5, right? Narration or relationship, dating your girlfriend and she's stronger in the game and so on, yeah. So this is something I don't think is that common, but you can find it like Front Mission, Persona, Fire Emblem, and if I'm so right. So you have your characters, and depending on what you do in the storyline, or who you date, who you love, or so on, or your friendship with them, depending on who you befriend outside in the order gameplay, which is not the battle gameplay, but like kind of the dating sim game, right? They get stronger, get new abilities, all right. Of course, Fire Emblem. This Fire Emblem game does that. It's basically very Persona Fire Emblem image. Here it is. Sorry, it's a lot of images. Yeah. So basically, that's what Fire Emblem House is doing, right? You have the kind of the teacher / commander, right? You befriend your people, you get stats and so on, right? And you do stuff with them, yeah. It's pretty cool, right? You have one gameplay, only gameplay, right? And depending on what you do in this gameplay, it depends on the main gameplay, right? So that's a classic thing as well, right? Persona games, of course, are famous for that, but you can find them in other games as well. In Front Mission, you have the link system, which I think is really nicely done. It's not as like relationship or like story driven, but from a technical standpoint, or strategy standpoint, I mean. Also technical, I guess, because it's the code wise, it's not hard, but yeah. So for the mission, you can link your characters up, right? It's kind of similar to old Fire Emblem games, where you like stand next to each other to get bonuses. But in for the mission, you can like link people that are friends and so on together. Then it's like, oh, my best friend's taking over there. Then I was throwing a grenade, and they will do stuff. So you will plan out your moves, right? And the other characters will like add in stuff, depending if you have different links and so on, and different abilities and the initiative and so on. So it's like really cool how you can plan out like combo attacks in a turn-based games, and it's very pre-planned, so you have to plan before the fight starts or in your customization. But it is really cool. It's more min-max theory level than relationship level though. But it's done very well, I think. Very well done from like a balanced technical, like game balance standpoint. I would argue for, but I think it's very well done. And of course, there are other games, right, like related stories, where and this game pattern is kind of like recruiting, the Pokemons, I guess, in another way. So Radiator Storage, which I think is here. No, that's not I'm break. There it is. Way. So this is a great game in the sense that it's like a Suikoden game if you play this game. It's that basically like Suikoden X Majora's Mask. So if you ever played, I assume everyone's played basically Majora's Mask, right? We had to stop the moon from coming killing you and everyone else, right? So in Majora's Mask, obviously you play the Ocarina, and then of course you stop time and go back again. Right? In the stories, you kind of circle around a time thing, so it's like every character in a game or city basically can be recruited as Suikoden. So the whole city has a lot of people you can recruit, right? But they all have their own like schedule and life. So you have to figure out like where they're gonna go, where you're gonna be, and so on. And they all have different missions. Like, oh, I want to have this like knight armor and so on. But to learn that, you have to go to this church and talk to this guy and so on. And it's quite complicated to get the characters. It's like basically again Suikoden X Majora's Mask. So a lot of characters to recruit, and they do different Majora's Mask stuff, right? Again, right? That could be a thing at Pokemon 2, where yes, you have the weather and so on. You have the weather, you have the elements. But it could also be like, well, in this Pokemon or this event and so on, right? And obviously I haven't even mentioned side quests in the game. But I think side quest is something I want to talk about in this video. Obviously side quests is like an obviously missing in Pokemon. So I feel though that aren't the same thing, I feel. Side quest is more like, okay, you have events and so on. But on that notion though, it would be great, right, if you have something like you meet a girl and she's like, oh, my cat is missing. You help that girl out, right? Find her cat. It's obviously it's gonna be a meowth, of course, and it's gonna be like a low and meowth, and then she gives you its its kid, right? You get your own a low and meowth, and so on. That would be great, for example, right? But I mean, like, as with this heavy time thing, a much more like, you know, looping thing and so on, you will have to like learn and understand the Pokemon's behavior much more, right? And that also is a notion, I would say, for that matter, which is like, I remember the pattern's name now, but it's like the enemy or the monsters interacting with the game world. I think it's called like interactive opponent, something like that. Which is that, for example, FF12 again is a good that Monster World. Just all the time in the new Monster World games, you can find other monster fighting, right? That's an issue with the open world and so on. Pokemon, there is nothing there, and there's no interaction with Pokemon. The Pokemon don't go around and like, you know, take barriers down. They don't fight each other. That could be cool, right? So let's say two people are fighting, two very high level Pokemon are fighting, then they get damaged, you can capture them both, or it's one of them and so on. That could be a thing you're on one side, right? Or maybe you can save a Pokemon that's losing to a bigger, higher Pokemon, and by doing that, it joins you and so on. That could be like an event, right? Like a random event that could happen every now and then. And maybe then again, in the more mass feel to it, it could have been that this could only happen on a Monday in real life and so on. That could be cool, right? I'm just saying that. No, I'm calling into the fantasy stuff, but still, they're right. There's so much stuff you can do. So, with Pokemon, so much. Another thing, replayability. Legend of Mana does it very well. So this is the you build the world pattern, which Legend of Mana, one of my also, of course, favorite game series. So it's a very expensive game too, because I haven't bought it freaking. Yeah, but I finally got this game. I paid twice what it cost when it was new, because I bought it new, but I had to pay like twice for get it because like it was outsold, right? So Legend of Mana, you actually build your own world. So you start with the tree, mana tree, right? And then by doing stuff in the mission, the game, and so on, you actually get new stuff. So you can add new stuff to the game. And you build the world, so you can build them different each time. And depending on how you build the world, you get extra stats and different stuff and so on, right? So that's very cool, and it's very high replayability from that, right? So Pokemon could also have the interactive world, right? This I would say immediately though. This I would say immediately not very feasible. So okay, I say it immediately. Technically wise, obviously one hard to do, depending on how the game is. Right? So in Legend of Mana, each area is locked away, right? Like a dungeon basically, right? Each area is actually a dungeon, but the areas can change depending on what you play next to it, right? So you can build the world, and Legend of Mana doesn't do this, but just to a minor degree. But I mean, in a perfect world, it would be like, here's a cave, and it's just a cave, right? But then I buy this ice area, and I place it next to the cave, this like frozen, you know, frozen waterfall, and then next to that, then the cave becomes an ice cave, right? And then I can go in there and get ice Pokemons. Right? That would have been like the perfect world, right? You can build your own world. But that I would say is obviously quite expensive, depending on how you make the world. Is like the opposite of open world. Yeah, it'll be like more like you build your own world, depending on how you do it, different. But in a perfect theory, though, it would be great because then you can build it like that, and you can't rebuild it. This would be, I think, permanent, right? A little harsh, but I don't permanent. Go here. It will be permanent, and depending on how you build your world, you are gonna have a certain amount of Pokemon you can capture, right, in your game. And that's unique for your building. Of course, someone can build it in the same way, but you get them, right? So in your build of the world, of your Pokemon world, these Pokemon exist, and the others doesn't. So to get all the Pokemon, it's a trade and so on, right? But that means that you can, like, I have built this like ice thing, and obviously you have more space in like one cave, so you can have maybe like, so let's say the game has 900 Pokemon, right? And depending on how you build, you're gonna have, let's say, 300 of them. You can't get more of them. So depending on how you build, you're gonna miss those 100, right? So someone else with on another build can, of course, trade with you to get them, right? That would have been really cool, and absolutely increase the ability. But I would say again, that sounds very unfeasible, depending on how you make the game. If the game is completely dungeon based, and each dungeon only getting the stats from the next thing, so it's one object and you get the other. It's like a lot of, it's like a matrix, and you get the other objects. I mean, I can see how you could do it technically. I don't think it's that hard to do. I mean, the issue with doing that stuff is that you have to do it from the beginning. Right? You have to do, if the game world is gonna work like that, you have to, from the beginning with your code, plan for that. But so if you have a plan from the beginning, it actually isn't that hard, and it could be really cool, right? You can have your different worlds and so on. It could be really, really badass. For example, but I think that's probably more like a dream king. And also I would argue that will make the game less epic, because if you do it like that, you can't have much narration. Like, it's a great game, but the storyline sucks in the game, because when you just build your own world, then the main story is completely whatever. Some people, it's very hard building your world from that. Anyway, next thing, level 100. This is a long video. Level 100. So you have the extra dungeons, right? Normally you have extra dungeons, usually if you beat the game, you get dungeon, right? Then you have the extended version, the level 100 dungeons. So Luffy, for example, here, you have the classic where you beat the game, or no, actually you can just do it immediately. Sorry, you can actually do it on an early level. Sorry, you just have to beat the game, yeah. But anyway, you have the level 100 thing. Wild Arms 3, for example, similar thing, right? Yeah. So in these things, you have a dungeon that's 100 floors. It's very challenging, and you usually have like a boss on every 10th floor, right? And of course, the Skya games are just based on this, right? If you play the Skya and Solo Man and so on, they're purely based on having like going into each item and so on and doing that, right? So what it means is that you have to challenge yourself. It's usually a much harder dungeon than the actual gameplay, right? And you do the 100 dungeons, and you have like maybe 3, 4, maybe every 10th level. You have a hard boss, right? You can escape probably some levels, and you want to get down deeper, right? In the Skya, of course, you improve your weapons also. You want to get deep to get extra bonuses. But in other games, it's more like you can do it once to get some extra ending or something. That's Ogre has this. What's called again? It's called like Halls of Paradise, or it's like Hell, something like that, something biblic, something like that. Yeah, and that's like the true main story. To get the true ending or this extra part of the storyline, you have to do this thing, right? Because some of the story elements is down there and so on. So it's incredibly challenging, and usually you have to do all 100 in one, in straight down, right? I remember personally when I played Wild Arms 3, which is not here, unfortunately, but yeah, Wild Arms 3 is somewhere else. Yeah, Wild Arms 3 has 119, and I remember it took me like 10 hours to do it, like literally play more than that. It's like it's so long in this game, and so many fights, and it's like this boss battle. Ragula has like 1 billion health. It took me like 2 hours to beat the boss, like just fighting the boss twice. You have to fight the boss twice on level 900, and it takes like an hour each to beat the boss, because the boss is so incredibly strong. With so much health, and it's hard boss too. And in that game, the boss doesn't have an anger meter. In one of those 3, the boss randomized abilities from the beginning, so they just full damage from level 1, or from the first round of the game. There's no like, after I lose my health, I get stronger. No, it's just full damage all the time. Incredibly hard. Took me a few hours to beat the boss. At least 2 hours, 1 hour each. I think it was more than that. It's like 3-4 hours. And then the dungeon itself was like at least 3-4 hours to get down to the boss. So that's a very challenging thing, right? Not very casual. Pokemon could easily have this, right? We have the battle tower thing. It kind of endless battle thing. They moved to Super now, which is strange. Pokemon clearly could have had this thing where you enter a dungeon, it's randomized, so it's pretty simple to do. Actually, from a technical standpoint, this 100 dungeon is to do, right? Because you just kind of randomize a dungeon, and you don't really to do. You have assets, but they are just a few of them, right? And you just randomize them around. Pretty easy to do, actually. And then you just have a lot of monsters, and they're max level, right? And they're super hard to beat. And eventually you meet trainers that are super strong. That could have been like where to beat Red, right? Down 100, yeah. And probably like a Mewtwo down there, yeah. Or have some kind of Dynamax thing in the bottom down with like a Super Mewtwo max stats, yeah. That would have been awesome, right? And of course, all the types of dungeons. The game could have set F15 is that thing, spoilers. But the last dungeon at 15, minus spoilers, but it has that thing where you can't use items. So if you beat all dungeons in the game, the last of one of these 100 floor dungeon. There's one I think is longer. I think the Water Temple thing has that's a dungeon that's at least 100 floors. It's incredibly long dungeon, at least a ton of one, which I have done the first. I think it's very easy in the game, so I've done it the first time, very easy. But it's very long at least. But then the other dungeon is easier enemies, but you can't use items, which is so detrimental because items are so imbalanced in that game. But whatever. That's like a challenging dungeon because it requires you to use only one thing, right? Or not use the one thing. So you could have a dungeon course in Pokemon, randomized, easy to do, technical standpoint, and it's like you can't use electric Pokemon, right? You can't use this thing, or you have to only use dragon Pokemon. But it can be, dragon, steel, it can be dual types, right? And that's easy to implement. Use a restriction if are easy to implement. Should be at least. I mean, I have never seen the code base of Pokemon, but theoretically, it should be very easy to, you know, make that you can't enter with these Pokemons, right? Kind of like legendaries can't be entered in this PP battle, right? Because they have a legendary status, right? So you usually call it flagging, right? So we have a flag for a legendary Pokemon should have a flag somewhere in, you know, the objective code. So a Pokemon is an object, right, with a lot of arrays in it, so it's a matrix, and in this matrix, it's probably a flag like yes or no, legendary yes or no, right? And in these flags, there's also a flag of like type, right? So like type fire, type dragon, and that's it, right? That is how the code has to be. That's insanity. So I have to assume that the code has like a, you know, yeah. Maybe it's not like every type is listed, and there's like a binary, yes, boolean, true or false, if it's like either types. That could be how it is, or it's like a matrix and has like different options of being what types. But I could see it being you have all the types, and then it's like a boolean, a true statement if it's true or not. That's probably easy to do actually. It depends on how the script works, but whatever. Let's say they have the booleans up because it's very easy to code. Then of course you have a dungeon and you check your flag, right? Oh, fire, yes or no? Yes, can't enter, right? Easy to code to do. Such things as legendary, yes or no? Yes, can't enter. Easy to do. Very easy to do. Very easy. This like an hour code to do it, yeah. The checking means stuff is easy to do. If the statement, if like the object makes sense. Which I think they already have code for, right? They have code for legendary yes or no, right? So that should be easy. So for example, having that thing, you can enter a dungeon, but you're restricted to only fire or you know, not fire and so on. And all the enemies are ice or something like that. Whatever, primarily ice enemies, and you can enter fire. Something like that. Could be interesting, right? I think an example of something you could easily do at least because it's just like a randomized thing, not hard doing an asset thing, and you have and some restrictions to the core gameplay can make it more interesting, right? Or it could just be like a really hard boss battles and so on down there, yeah. Potentially too. But I mean it's easy to kind of go back and forth, right? And it could be like if you get to level 10, you can then exchange your Pokemon. So each level 10, 20, 30, so on, you have to change the rules. So it's like on 30, no more electric, dragon, and water, right? So you have to change out your team, but you get a heal or something. And you have like limited, you have like 5 heals or something, so you can like use the heals every now and then. You can of course save it how you want, right? You want to use it now or later, and you have to plan it out. Something like that. And it's easy to, technically, it's easy to do. Actually, I think it is. Honestly. I think it is. What more patterns do we have that I would like to see in the game? I mean, generally, other mini games, right? They're completely different from the game. So, for example, Final Fantasy has a card games, right? They have 2 different 8 and 9. Blitzball, as I already mentioned, that can be the last thing I then talk about, which is like an interesting thing, right? So, okay, I did a lost body image. Oh, whatever, I thought I had body image. So, for Fantasy, no, great game, right? It has the chocobo racing, it has the card game and so on, right? It's basically a Gwent and so on, like in which is one, right? And those card games are like, it's a game in a game, right? It's literally like a trading card game in another game. Gwent, of course, I think is famous for that today, I think, in Witcher, but they started with FF8, I would say. It's probably the first game they really had like an own card game with the best music ever. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, it's super good music. Yeah, dun, 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 dun. Yeah, awesome music, and that is like kind of what you expect from a AAA game. I think that's kind of the honest truth, right? When I play Final Fantasy, and I mentioned earlier to F13, I liked the game. I actually really love every character. Hope it's my least favorite character to post, but F13, I freaking love Lightning, I love Vanille, I love Sash, I love Fang. I even like Snow. I love Snow too. I like Snow and Sarah, especially they're dating, so I like that thing. My favorite character is probably Sash, though. He's a great character. And in my honest opinion, probably the best black character in video games. He's in a Japanese role-playing game. If you're going from from that aspect, he's a great character, like a great father, great character development and so on. Him and Vanille, best dynamic in that game. But I do kind of like the Uranus of Fang and Vanille as well, though. And I actually kind of like how Lightning is like raising Hope too. So I like everything in that game, story-wise, honestly. I like all the characters. The main story I don't like that much. I like the characters. And I like the gameplay, I like the battle, I like the great core gameplay. But that game as Pokemon has no king. There's nothing else to the game. FF10 has Blitzball. Blitzball is so damn good. Blitzball, again, probably my favorite minigame, right? Blitzball, freaking amazing minigame. And then FF12 has like everything in the game. It's so much bosses, so much into trying stuff and so on. FF12 is just so massive in its bosses and hunts and so on. And 13 is like, we have the hunts from 12, but they're worse, way worse than 12's huntings, and nothing else. There's no minigames, there's no, chocobo racing, there is no card game and so on. Yeah, Final Fantasy, again, known for that. And 15, much better. But the fishing, much better. The fishing is like game by itself, right? And I liked it a lot. Fishing in 15, I loved it. Great minigame. And I think that's a main thing as well, right? Going back to this thing again, it's like, with the minigames, you expect a full minigame in a AAA game, especially touch Final Fantasy, like the chocobo, hot and cold thing. I hated the water thing, This I will never forget. You have to find the water one. This is the worst thing ever in a minigame, So basically in FF9 you have to go around and peek on the world following this kind of image. This is the worst one because this is water in the image, and you have to just go around and poke everywhere to try to find that water place, and it's so hard to find it. And I found it eventually by just going around everywhere, just poking everywhere. You get the best weapon to sit down though, so you need to do it. Back to do, But still though, like FF especially, they have so many minigames. You expect it to be that you expect from a $60 game. You expect it to have a full minigame, right? And comparable again to like Suikoden that has 3 different gameplays. 3 different gameplays to do with the strategy thing, right? The image of thing here of the strategy thing. Here it is. So it's like classic, kind of Fire Emblems fights, right? And also has the normal fighting game, and it also has the normal, right? The normal battles, right? Like a typical role-playing game. Similar to like Sega Frontier 2, you also have the normal 4 against 4 fighting. You also have the duel system, which is very, very different. 2 completely different fighting styles, and so on, right? So you expect the games to either have more than one core gameplay that's quite different, and also having like a lot of minigames. And that's really, so I mean, that combination of that, and after that, you should also have all the bosses, right? So in that especially, right, you have 3-4 minigames, you have different core gameplays, 3 minigames, and then you also have like 25 extra bosses, and potentially a good storyline. But yeah, and I think that's something I haven't really touched upon here, right? Because the storyline is not really a content thing, but obviously the storyline in Pokemon is just a joke, right? I think this is a worse storyline, in my opinion. Sword and Shield is a worse storyline, and it's so short, right? And incredibly short, and it's no storyline. So you're not even giving it there. For example, again, DQ11, story never ends. Just so much storyline. Yeah, it just never stops, right? It's not that good. It just never stops. but yeah, it's like you have that thing, and they are games examples of DQ8 here. That has the Dragon Monster, the Dragon Warrior, Dragon Monster, Joker, the monster, so on. Is of course the DQ version of Pokemon, which is a really good game for that matter. I played it hundreds of hours, amazing game. But in DQ8 then, which is I would argue is the best Dragon Quest game so far, you have also that's a wrong image, sorry. That's a cooking thing. This image, there we go. So in DQ8, this is a great game for that matter, right? I think it's the best Dragon Quest game, in my opinion. And yes, 11 is very similar to this game, as it should be. But that's the thing though, with Dragon Quest, like 11 is very similar, but it has a longer storyline, some more mini-games, some more stuff and so on, right? So it's fine because they're taking the formula and they're refining it. Yes, they were missing this thing here, but they were doing all the stuff instead, right? So you like the game still, no? Because it's like, yeah, it's just the same, what you expect, and more other stuff, yeah, what you expect. So anyway, in DQ8, they have freaking Dragon Monster Joker in the game. So literally, it's a Pokemon game in DQ8 that's like as advanced as Pokemon games. Like literally, you gotta catch Pokemon one. And I mean, come on, World of Warcraft has the Pokemon thing too, right? With Pokemon everywhere and so on, yeah. So in DQ8 anyway, yeah, DQ8 classic, AAA game, right? They have the crafting, the other mini games, and the casino, the theme park thing with different like blackjack and so on. Yeah, the casino parts, 7 level and so on. And they also have in 8 a complete full Dragon Quest monster experience in the game. That is like a massive in-game thing, right? And it's like mini games, like an actual in-game thing, yeah. You get 2 games for one there, yeah. That is, in my opinion, right, a classic AAA $60 game. I paid $60 or $70 for that game, probably was new, yeah. And that's what you expect, right? I think it was more expensive for some reason. I think it has some kind of limited. Well, I also have the MTC version though, so I imported it. I have the American version. I was living in Europe, so I have some kind of I think limited edition, whatever. Most of my games are actually NTC, even though I live in Europe, because if it's 12, you can see there, right? It says NTC. Okay, can you see there? No, damn it. There we go. Finally, damn camera. Yeah, NTC, because America got the games before Europe, like half a year before or so. Some of the games, so I imported most of my actually role-playing games, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, or something, from the US or Canada primarily, so I could play the games earlier than Europe, and also games that should have never got to Europe anyway. So yeah, so you got more games, right, and FFT and so on, and Legend of Mana, and SK2, yeah, there's always also never released in Europe. This is the only version of it in English. Same with Leopard Tactics, also never released in Europe, I think. Phantom Brave, probably not released in Europe. I don't think so. Also, yeah. So actually, most of my games here actually are the US version, actually, almost all of them. Yeah, except like the first PlayStation 1 games, they are PAL, which is good because they're more worth money. But anyway, yeah. Sorry, cut off story, live story there. But I mean, my point is that all of these games, right, that I paid about $6-7, and I expect it to be like 40+ hour storyline. I expect it to be 50-hour or extra content. No, but I expect it to be, a few extra bosses. I expect it to be full-on minigame story, minigames. I expect the minigames to buff you and be important for your main storyline and so on, right? All of this is what you expect, honestly. And that's again another point to why I want to make this video, right? Because I wanted to make a video describing and talking about what Pokemon should have had. And I mean it should, not just should have had. If you're gonna cost full price and go to a Switch console, which has a lot more power, right? So why are you doing anything else that any other Pokemon JRPG game is doing, right? I think that's the main concern, right? As I mentioned in the video, dexit is not the biggest issue, but removing content like GTS, removing content, stuff like that, and also not getting any new content. I mean, Battle Tower is worse, right? Battle Tower, it has no super battle, yeah, and so on. But you expect a JRPG game to have so much more, right? And I think that is really the sad state Pokemon is, to be honest, right? Because it's just like, it has nothing what these other JRPG full title has for their budget and for their fame, right? And again, Pokemon is the biggest franchise ever, right? And they don't have all the money for that. But if Fantasy and so on, obviously going to be bigger. But like Konami Suikoden, that wasn't the biggest game ever. That wasn't the biggest game, but they always had so much more content Pokemon. Yeah, for the beginning, right? Without being like in that money. It's a big franchise. It used to be. They don't do that anymore, but it used to be a big franchise. But it's so much more, right? And I think Rogue Galaxy is a great example of a game that kind of come from nowhere and just kind of perfected everything. And it's perfected, but this game is actually really good. Like it's not the best role-playing game ever, but it did everything other games did around that time, PlayStation 2, around that area, and they just made everything really refined. They have like mini games for. They also have monster battles in that game too. They also have like a Pokemon thing as well, where you kind of like you capture bugs and then they fight, and it's like a chessboard tactical game. So first it's a Pokemon game to capture monsters, right? And then they fight, a typical like Fire Emblem front mission kind of chessboard role-playing game, and the level and so on as well. So it's like two mini games at once that connect to each other, and the crafting and some more stuff and so on. So that game has a lot of stuff done right. Not the best game ever. The storyline I would say is okay, but it's like it did a lot of stuff other games earlier did and really refined them. Really good. And the crafting again, probably the best crafting in my opinion ever with the whole grinding stuff. Or maybe what's top it is. So stuff like that, right, makes the game a lot better, a lot more complete as a Japanese role-playing game. Because that is the genre. That is the genre of Japanese role-playing game. Pokemon is clearly, and you look at Pokemon to Game Boy, you kind of have that enough for a Game Boy. The first game, you had the casino, right? You had the money stuff there. You had the storyline. In the second game, Silver and Gold, you had like, you unlocked the whole second world. Red is the last boss one. Red was the boss battle, right? The old gym leaders, the Elite Four, they had that context, right? Yeah, that stuff and so on. And after that, it kind of like just kind of dwindled. They really should have more stuff in that. But yeah, this is the video. Like guys, it's all some of the examples. Right? Of course, there are more examples you can have, more game design pattern and mechanics that are out there, right? that other JRPG game has. But that's why I wanted to make this video, because I really wanted to talk about the features a game really should have to. I think the word should is not could here. I would again always say, yes, the game also need to have all this stuff. It also need to have the whole world thing, and the end boss thing, and 10 mini games, and a racing game, and so on, and a fishing game, and they also need to have everything. They also need to have all these ideas. But obviously, it should have at least half or so, or at least some of them. Pokemon, of course, is such a massive industry, so much money in it, so they can easily afford making so much extra stuff, right? And that's the big reason why it's very disappointing, right? Because this is like, wow, there's so much stuff to do. And comparing Pokemon to any other JRPG with some kind of fame, it really is like, wow, this game has the core gameplay, which is really good, it's really fun, right? But there's nothing else except the core gameplay. And I really want to make the video again here to really talk about all these other examples of what is typically in the genre and what you expect if you pay the full price from any other producer. Only like Pokemon, Nintendo, Game Freak gets away by doing like half-ass. It really isn't the truth. It really gets away from doing nothing, right? And it's a sorry state, right? Because obviously, I also didn't be super negative. I just want to talk about what the game is lacking and so on, what it could have. I wanted to be a little imaginative, right? But at the same time, you do get into that mind state where it's like, man, the game is so bare-boned, everyone knows it, people still buy it. Yeah, but like doing this thing, and I talked about this during this week, and I read some other reviews and so on. I mean, all user reviews that are honest, not like the game reviews. And it's also really sad, right? Of course, the reviewers, so most of them that are giving the good reviews are so completely biased, right? Because yes, again, the game core play is good, but it's only the core gameplay. And if I bought a fantasy game, again, right, especially fantasy, because they're so known for having so much extra stuff, like FF13, and it lacked that stuff, I was like, wow, this is not a fantasy game. Final Fantasy should have a casino, a golden saucer, it should have this thing, it should have Sparkle Racing. Like, that what you expect the game to have like 5 mini-games, and some alternative end bosses at least. Yeah, it's like, no, not Final Fantasy. Only a main story and like 3 bosses. Like, that's not Final Fantasy. Yeah, it has a lot of hunts, but they're pretty easy, right? So we'll have a few other extra bosses. And actually, F13 has way too easy last bosses too, for that matter. But yeah, I said F13 is actually one of my favorite character, like just generally characters, not the storyline, but the characters. But it's so, and I like the game. I think the core gameplay is really good, but it failed on like Pokemon here, on having the extra content stuff. And I remember in reviews, that game was very anti-hyped, so it got bad reviews for that stuff, kind of like the dexit thing. But then some reviews, because it was like so linear, and it's always linear. Right? F10 is more linear for that matter, but F10 is actually a lot more linear. Yeah, it's even more linear. F10 is like a straight path like that. F13 is like a straight path, and then it's like a big area and a path. So it's like at least a big area in the middle. Where yeah, F10 is 100% a straight line. F13 is like 80% a straight line. So it was funny. There was funny people were saying it was bad because it's like a linear game. Yeah, but it's less linear than the other game that you liked. So, but whatever. It was anti-hyped, but the few reviews that were like sane in that game, they were all like, "Wait, where's the mini games?" Yeah, they were all like, "It's on a 10 because they had there's no mini games." Yeah, so that was perfect in that game because every like non-anti-hype reviewer really was like, the game is great, but it has no mini games, so it's not a fantastic game. Yeah, it's a failed game, right? And in Pokemon, it should be at that, right? Because it makes more money for fantasy. It's so all right. It makes it is like, man, it's just sad compared to every other JRPG basically ever since. And again, right, all of this, most of the game around me here are cheaper, right, to produce. Most of the or they sell less, right? Like I don't know, Chrono Cross or so on. Right? It's Exona games, yeah, that no one bought it. That game has actually nothing though. Sure, some of these games here, like Exona games, has actually nothing at all. It's just like their main storyline. It's like forever. It's just like an endless storyline. But that game has like a biblical, philosophic storyline that is just like, at least you're buying a game, there's like a 50 hours narration that makes you confused and question why you're alive and so on. Yeah, so it leads something else in that game, right? They spent all the money on the storylines. Yeah, they bought like 10 writers instead. Yeah, 10 writers that wrote like a really crisp storyline. So of course, all of the games don't have that, right? But also, in Pokemon's detriment, it is the biggest game, and they went to a 60 price line, right? Comparing it to other games, then it's fair, right? But anyway, that's the video, guys. Leave a comment below, see what you think and so on. Not a long video, I know, but I want to cover all this stuff, right? And obviously there's a lot more gameplay patterns and content you can have in a game. As I mentioned, I didn't really cycle so much because I think cycle is obvious thing. I also got more this end game stuff and so on. But there are, of course, many other stuff you could have, right? And also I wanted to make it, as I mentioned, mainly feasible. Where I feel they could have, each thing I mentioned here, they could have done. I wouldn't say easily, but some of them very easily, especially like the super end training guys. You skill a freaking training like that, but yeah, that's very easy to do. Probably like a 1 day's work to give 10 trainers the best Pokemon level 99. That can't be more than 1 day work. And then if they already have the models, but doing the models then, I guess it's like a few days. But yeah, that's incredibly easy work. I mean, honestly, incredibly easy work, right? Because they already have the code and everything to make a trainer and set the level at Pokemon for this trainer. So making like, you know, Miss Moon, as I mentioned, Sailor Moon, yeah, her be this champion from the last game, giving her 699 Pokemons. It's incredibly easy. You already have the model, so just place her in the city, and you can only fight her if you have beaten the last game, right? Super easy to do. And then I guess you could have some kind of trigger, a flag that you beat her and you can beat the next one. So that's a little more cool, I guess. But just placing her there as a super end boss, that is incredibly little work. That's like 1 day work. So yes, they already had the models, yeah, so that's like 1 day work. At most. Probably only a few hours, honestly. The only thing that takes time is like figure out her team, I guess. But you ever have like, it should be 6 Alolan Pokemon, so you kind of know one of her starters or one. So it's kind of like, this kind of half-assed. You can do it pretty quickly. Yeah. So I think it's like a maximum 1 day work, right? So it's incredibly easy because that's something you could do based on your current content. And the secret of doing many games, you want to handle content for your game, right, is reusing stuff. That's the truth, right? You reuse stuff. For example, you have a level design where you're attacking this fortress, like a position tree. And then you replay the game and you play the evil side instead if you want to, and then you will start defending the fortress, right, from the rebels, right? Yeah. So you can have the exact same level design, but you swap what side you're on, so no level design has to be done, right? So the level designer or designers, whatever how many employees you have, they can have the exact same workflow or workload. So they spend like a week making that fortress stage, right? And then you can reuse that, and the battle like 1 hour long. So you extended the gameplay with 1 hour without actually adding any level design load, right? Of course, someone has to code that you can enter from different areas and so on, but it's a lot less work, right? They already have, and I guess if you have some kind of like location and stop system for the units, you can place it around in your level editor probably like an hour. So that's like a way to reuse that stuff, right? It's very common to see in many games, right? Because it's smart, right? So that's the key, right? To extend the game's lifetime by finding issues, by finding areas where you can extend the stuff without doing too much work. And again, then I think that especially this super end boss thing with super high level trainers is incredibly easy to do, because you can obviously do trainers, you can obviously do all of that stuff. So it should be like a day's work per trainer, per red, blue, and green, yeah, and so on, yellow, gold, silver, X, Y, yeah. That should be like 1 day per person, basically. Especially since they have the models for other ones, right? And the animation, you can use rigs from either the rigs from the other games. I guess they have the rigs also reused, or they can rig them, but they can use like the rig, like the hop and how has the same rig, right? So you can use the rig from other characters. I mean, it's one thing that actually makes it easy is that the character Pokemon, all the humans at least, could have more or less the humans can have the same animation rig because they'll use humans, 2 persons, and yeah, and you do like this throw and so on. So you have already like 10 different rigs, right? And you can just reuse. Oh, give Miss Moon then the rig from like Karate Girl or something. Yeah, just give them like that. In worst case scenario, right? You can do that in like a very short amount of time. So on. So it truly, trust me, that it truly is like a day work at max getting in a super level 99, gold, silver, whatever, right? Yeah. So it seriously be like a few days work for one designer, one animator, one model, graphic artist, a little code to have the if, such, and so on, which is really easy. So code is probably the least amount of constraint in that thing. Maybe if you want to have some kind of system, you have to be in order. But it's probably seriously, it's like a 5-6 man teams work in like 2 weeks max. Probably even a week, because you probably do it faster. Each time you do it, you probably do it faster too. So that's like 1 day to learn how to do it if you don't do it already. 2 days to do it. So yeah, that is the easiest thing. I think that's the best example of something you could done very easily, and would have added the single player campaign, an immense game plus thing, but you would have so much more last bosses. You could have, like I mentioned again, like 12, 13 bosses, right? More, yeah, and it will be seriously a few weeks work. I think so, at least. Unless the code is completely crap, right? But even if the code is crap, it's like, well, it has to work somehow. I mean, you can clearly fight trainers now, and yeah, the goal is just to make trainers at max level and have them around cities. It's really easy, yeah. So that can't be, and they can all just stand still too. They can all just stand in different places. Like this dungeon, this girl is over here, she's over in the city. This guy's standing like outside his gym. You can just have to find them, right. In worst case scenario, yeah, you just have them run places, and then you place like a red somewhere else hidden probably. But like it's super easy. That is so easy. Well, whatever. See you guys in the next video. Subscribe, hit the like button, and I'll see you guys on the channel again. Live stream now on the channel. So you guys have a great day.